I am blue, you are bright and shiny in my mind. You got me loving, hating, crazy indecision in my mind.
Welcome to the Fall Podcast, where the focus is on deer hunting, tips, tricks, tactics, and stories from across the Midwest. And now, here is your host, Aaron Blasey.
Welcome to the Fall Podcast. I am your host, Aaron Blasey, and yes, it is episode number 81. And today I have the guys from the Habitat Podcast on, Brian and Jared. You know, I wanted to get these guys on. I was on their podcast a couple months ago, and I actually put it on my RSS feed as well. I wanted to get these guys on to talk about some last-minute food plot things, as far as maybe saving a food plot, going in and, you know, top dressing it and working it up, and, you know, things to save it last minute. You know, we're in September now. Season is really fastly approaching. So if you got a food plot and it's not doing what you want it to, this might be the podcast you want to listen to. There's some really cool talking points in here, and these guys give some really good information on how to save a food plot and what to do. I kind of kick it off with a couple scenarios that I'm actually having on a farm here in Michigan that, you know, we just didn't have a lot of rain this summer, and the food plots didn't take off like I wanted to. So, you know, those guys helped me out a little bit, and hopefully it'll help you out as well. So hopefully you guys will enjoy this one. Thanks for listening. Thanks for supporting the podcast. And I'm going to kick it over to this interview with Brian and Jared. And welcome back to the Fall Podcast. And today I have, I guess I could call it returning guests. I mean, you guys had me on your podcast, but Jared and Brian from the Habitat Podcast. How you guys doing, man?
What's up, guy? How are you?
Doing good, Eric.
Good deal, Brian. Brian, how's your weather down there right now?
It's been really hot. I just went up and sighted in my dad's 30-06 that I'm taking out west. And I said to my buddy up at the range, I said, okay, I don't want to wish the summer away, but I don't really like being up on the gun range when it's 85 degrees.
Yeah.
But we've been getting some timely rains for the food plot, so that heat's good for all the stuff that I need the heat for, so I'm not going to complain.
Oh, good deal. Well, I think Jared and I have been kind of getting the same weather. Has it been pretty chilly for you in the mornings and getting down there in the evenings?
Yeah, it feels great.
Yeah, fall's definitely in the air. I actually mowed my lawn yesterday, and I've got these oak trees in my yard, these white oak trees. And I'll tell you what, if those oak trees are any inclination of the acorn drop this year, we're going to have a really, really good acorn drop, because they are all over and the leaves are falling on the ground as well. So the fall is in the air. I can for sure see that. So the fall is definitely in the air, and I wanted to get you guys on today to talk about, I mean, we're in September now, and, I mean, season's starting here. I'm leaving next Friday for Kansas Archery, so I can't wait for that. And, you know, I want to get you guys on to talk about a little bit of habitat and food plots. I mean, last time you guys had me on your podcast, we talked about, you know, a lot about my 1 acre and small acre properties and hinge cutting and everything like that, but you know, we're getting to crunch time here, and I'm not gonna lie to you, Brian. You just mentioned it. You know, the rain situation with food plots. Well, we're not getting any rain up here, hardly at all. It is dry, and I planted some food plots, and I am praying to the hunting and food plot gods that it'll rain, but it has not, and I am struggling, man. I am struggling right now, and I need some help. So I'm not an expert at any of this, because, you know, that's why I turn to guys like you guys to kind of lend a helping hand maybe. But I might kick it off right here and just kind of explain one of my scenarios and pick your guys' brain on it. Now, I made a new plot this year where it's never been worked up before, and it was just like a goldenrod CRP grass, and it was right on the edge of an ag field. It's always been an ag field. The plot's probably a 1/4 acre, just a little kill plot. And went in there, sprayed it all. Well, actually, first I went in there and weed whipped it. And then I sprayed it all, killed it, went back in there, worked it up really good. Like, I worked it up quite a bit just to get the ground going, and the ground was kind of hard. It looked like the soil was good. I'm not going to lie to you. I didn't do a soil test because I was lazy and didn't have a lot of time. And I went in there and broadcasted some chicory. Now, I haven't planted a lot of chicory in my day, and broadcasted some chicory, and I packed it in. And, it's been probably, I don't think it's been a month. It might be a month since I planted it. We've probably got in total an inch of rain. And I went back there and I went back there and looked at it, and it's coming up, but it is really, really spotty. And I haven't fertilized it or anything. Do you have any ideas, either one of you? I mean, I don't know who wants to take it first. Brian, Jared, I don't care, but I'm in desperate mode right now. I need some help.
Yeah, I mean, we're all in the same boat at this time of year. Everybody finds a lot of their food plots, whether it's your soybeans or your corn, or in your case, chicory. We had a tough year, and we're going to find some places that are pretty spotty. That's not anything to be concerned about yet. I mean, that we're just getting the beginning of September. That can be overseeded with some cereal grains, rye and oats, and those things will come up pretty quick. Even peas. You still got time to get some field peas or winter peas in, whatever your local seed company has. But as far as the chicory, is it looking pretty healthy, or is it got more of a yellow tint, or is it looking pretty green to you?
It's pretty green, for what is coming up. It's pretty green, but like I said, I mean, really spotty, and it's not dying. It doesn't look like it's dying. It just doesn't look like, I mean, obviously it's suffering for water and germination.
Sure.
And like I said, it's been about a month now. Will that seed that didn't germinate, will that die? Or is that a stupid question? I guess I don't know a lot about it.
No.
So I mean, will it germinate still?
No, it's just like in nature, when seeds will sit in the seed bank, they could sit there for a long time until they have the right conditions to germinate. Now that doesn't guarantee that those chicory seeds will, but it's a possibility.
Gotcha. So you think if I go in there, I can spread, cereal grain, or rye or something like that, and just broadcast it over it. I would wait for a rain, if
Yes,
we don't really
definitely
have anything coming here in the near future. So I'm hoping we get a pop up or something, and I'm going to keep the seed in my truck, I think, and just in the spreader. And whenever something pops up, I'm going right to the field. So.
Yeah, and if you can get your hands on some urea or some type of heavy nitrogen fertilizer, that would definitely help to throw that on right before rain.
Okay, gotcha. Now, I have been trying to read a little bit about chicory, and is chicory, I've been reading that it will come back for about 3 years. Is that true?
That's correct.
So is there anything you have to do to prep it for it to come back, and kind of maintain it for, year in and year out for the next, year or two?
Well, a lot of guys will mix clover with their chicory, and they can both withstand a lot of mowing and a lot of grazing from the deer. So just keeping the competition down. You want to keep the weeds and the grasses at bay, just so it doesn't have to struggle against those. That's about the best maintenance you can do for it.
I got you. Okay. Yeah, and like I said, I've lucked out a little bit. My brother-in-law, he's a farmer. He did wheat this year. I've been mentioning it on the podcast here, and he let me actually work up some areas in the ag field to throw down some food, because he's not going to work it up until next spring. So excited about that, but it's almost like a kick in the butt, because now we don't have rain, so nothing's really growing. So it's like I just wasted time and money in doing all that, and I'm like, well, I wonder how this season's going to end up.
I think with your chicory, I mean, it still sounds like it's fairly young, right? So, a lot of guys will plant chicory and clover in the springtime, and when I planted it last season, it took a while for that to really get established and get up. It, like Brian said, top dressing or top seeding with some cereal grains. You could even throw some perennial clover in there. So next spring, when all the snow melts and everything, you'll have clover and chicory first up. And like Brian said, you can hit that with the mower quite a bit. And by next fall, you'll have a really nice stand in that spot. And I would definitely include some fertilizer either at planting or, like Brian said, a nitrogen with a rain. And that should help fill in some of that gap on that chicory plot, I'd think.
So I'm a sucker for clover. It's my favorite seed. It's my favorite thing to hunt over. I just love lush clover plots. And, in my experience, they're pretty maintenance free in a way. You know what I mean? You do have to put some time and effort into them, but it's not like every year you have to go in and work the field back up and replant. I've got some good clover stands 3, 4, 5 years out of them, and that's huge. So if I went to plant clover in this, kind of give me a little bit, Jared, give me a little bit of background on clover and how it would react and how long it would last in the fall. I mean, is the first frost going to take it right out, or should I look at something where, something that might withstand some colder temperatures better and I can actually use it, in the winter to hunt over maybe like turnips or something?
Yeah. So whatever clover you're going to overseed with right now, or I always want to say overseed, but top dress with, there's perennial and annual clovers. So I would do both in that plot this fall yet. So your annual clover is super attractive, and deer are going to love that, along with, like Ryan said, the cereal grains. So I would hit that with the clover, both annual and perennial, and then cereal grains. And what that's going to do, the annual clover is going to be attractive this fall. The cereal grains are going to be attractive this fall, but they're also going to act as a cover crop for the perennial clover. Your perennial will not look that amazing this fall. It'll be small. It'll look good. But when it's really going to take off is in the spring. So once it gets established this fall and protected by the cereal grains, the annual clover, your chicory, next spring, once that's, a lot of that has died off, your perennial clover is going to pop and be the first thing that's green on that property, most likely. Gotcha. And it's just a really heavy browser, so deer can just eat it and eat it and eat it, and you're not going to really, eat it down to a fairway like sometimes my peas and oats plots look. By end of October, they're down to the grass in my yard type height, and they don't really come back as much. That clover, even with some frost, is gonna hold on pretty strong. And then, like I said, in the spring, it's gonna be the first thing that pops up and grow all summer long. So clover's really attractive, really special. We always have clover on my property, at least on the outer edges where the plots meet the woods. That's a good spot for it, in my opinion, because you can establish it, keep it for 3 to 5 years, like you said. And that's kind of the tougher spot of the food plot to grow because of the sunlight, being shaded from the woods edge or what have you. So I like to have that, right at the woods edge.
Yep. Gotcha. Now, we had kind of talked, I think in the last podcast, when I used some resurrection clover from Killer Food Plots for my my frost seeding back in when I did it within the 1 acre. And I'll tell you, I've had nothing but good luck with that stuff. Like, it would be knee high right now if I wouldn't have went in and mowed it. I had to mow it. Because it was so high and so lush. Now, what does the resurrection clover have to offer? And would that be something that you would go in there, with the annual and perennial? Does it have both of those in there? And is that something you would plant?
It does. A lot of Killer Food Plots mixes are somewhat confidential. He doesn't even tell me all the good stuff that's in all that. But I do know that there is a mix of both annual and perennial clover. So my resurrection clover is also knee high. I'm letting one of my plots just go crazy and not mow it, just to see what kind of forbs come up, just to see how tall it can get, and see what kind of diversity I can get in that food plot without really touching it, besides spot spraying, some weeds and stuff like that. But his resurrection clover is a mix of perennial and annual. So, it looks good right now. It's going to take all the browse it can take this fall when your deer are on it all the time, back in that bedding area on that 1 acre.
Yep.
And then next spring, it's going to look just as good again.
Yeah. Man,
I've been impressed with his stuff, man. I really have.
I have too, and I got 3 bags of the Border Patrol, and I couldn't get it in this year. I was too scared because we weren't getting the rain, and I'm
after
like,
our first podcast, yeah,
yes,
yep.
and I'm like, I don't want to put it in, and you spend money on this stuff, and it's not the cheapest stuff out there, and I'm like, you know what? If you just don't plan it, you'll never know. And I didn't plan it. It's a next year thing now. So, but I've had the best luck with clover in the timber. Is that weird, or is that, something that's common? Because I've had clover plots that have been out in the middle of nowhere, in just an open field, but I've had the best luck broadcasting clover in the timber, trees all around it, and it comes up and it looks like a lush green carpet. Is there any trick to that? Is there something I'm doing? I'm not fertilizing. I'm not doing anything. I'm literally going there like a throw and grow, and it's taking off like crazy.
So I'll start on that. And to answer your question before that, I just looked up their mix because I didn't have it memorized. They have crimson white clover, ladino clover, red clover, Alsike clover, and white clover. Brian, I probably butchered that one, and Burstein clover. So as you see, there's 6 or 7 different types of clover in there. And I know that it is more of a shade tolerant crop or variety than certain things out there. Brian, why do you find that it grows in the woods so well?
Yeah, that's definitely one of the factors. And like Aaron was talking about, the lack of rain that you guys have had, that's pretty common in the mid to late summer. And something out in the field is going to dry out faster and not be as lush. Whereas you got something in the shady, filtered sun areas, it's going to benefit from that extra moisture that's not getting dried out by the heat.
I could see that for sure.
Yeah. And also, it depends. Like most times when you go and break something up in a wood setting, the soil is most likely going to be on the acidic side. And but that's not always the case. There's been times on properties that I've done for friends and other properties that I've owned, I've gone into a spot and thought, well, nothing's going to do good here this first year, but I'm going to get something down, and it's done fantastic. So it's kind of a luck of the draw if you're not doing a soil test. But you got a lot of good organic matter in a forest setting with all the leaves and everything breaking down. So sometimes food plots will benefit from that.
I got you.
Plus, there's nothing better looking than a bunch of trees with like a clover carpet. I don't know why, but that just looks so cool.
It does look
You know what I mean?
It literally looks like my lawn that I just went and plopped trees in,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome. Now, and either one of you guys can take this question. I've always wondered what you guys do for food plot designing. Is there a special design when you're going in and making a food plot, whether it's for a client or if it's for yourself or a friend or something? I know it could be very situational, but if you had the perfect opportunity to design a food plot the way you wanted, how would you do it? Jared, if you want to take it first, I'd really like to get your thoughts on it.
Sure. That's a great question. There are a lot of different shapes you can use. A lot of them kind of relate to the same aspect, in my opinion, and that's driving the deer you're hunting within bow range. If you're talking like a micro kill plot or a plot you're going to hunt.
Yeah, let's talk like a micro kill plot for bow. Yep. Sure.
Perfect. My favorite is an hourglass plot. There are also some other, just imagine the hourglass shape, wide up top, narrow in the middle, wide on the bottom. And there are plenty of other ones, an L-shaped plot. I even saw one that's like a V-shaped plot that I thought that's just an L turned on its side. So it's really all the same kind of idea. What you're trying to do is to get those deer to naturally feed towards your tree stand. But you don't want to choke them off too tight, or they feel like there's, the cover's too tight and they feel a little bit stressed. And they don't like to get themselves in an area where they feel trapped in. But what I did on my property this year, and also working with the HuntWise guys, we're putting in a new food plot up there. We also did an hourglass shape. But you start really wide on one end towards the cover where the deer, you expect the deer to come from. And slowly you narrow that down. Not by too much. Like, you just narrow it down. It's a thinner type food plot versus where it started. So maybe where it started, say it's 60 yards wide. You narrow it down towards the middle of that hourglass shape, and now maybe you're at 35 yards, right? So it's not a very dramatic pinch, but, you know, you, me, and Brian can all shoot our bows pretty good at 35, 40 yards. So if you can get that deer to naturally walk towards the other direction, maybe there's some destination food over there or some more bedding areas he's going to check out, that deer you're hunting, you can get him to just walk the edge of that plot, you've naturally forced him within bow range. And that's why I like the hourglass or even like a V shape, where they start out on one side, they kind of meander and graze as they come down through the plot, you know, towards your stand.
Right.
So the reason we're doing these kill plots is for that, you know, it says it in the name right there. We're trying to be able to hunt these. The deer are not going to spend a ton of time on them. They're not going to be there all night. They're just going to move through. And when they do move through, you want them to come through in bow range.
Yep. Which I totally agree. You know, there's tons of different designs out there. And, you know, something I've been battling with myself this year is I've been talking to you guys about it. You know, on the 1 acre farm, it's a big ag field and there's no food in it right now. But I told you, you know, I made some food plots in it. But I'm trying to think outside the box a little bit to get these deer to have to come in front of these stands. You know, it's either it's basically hunting fence rows, you know, on big ag fields. And, you know, the last couple of years I've been experimenting with licking branches and, you know, taking a tree out and digging a hole in the field and putting basically a scrape tree right next to it. You see a lot of guys do it. Mark Drury does it a lot, you know. And from the pictures right now that I'm already getting, and it's, you know, we're still in the summer, but it's working right now. But we'll see what happens in the fall when the velvet comes off, and we'll see if it entices them any other way. But that's what I'm just trying to find. And it seems like deer like to gravitate towards structure in a way, whether that be, you know, hay bales out in the middle of a hay field, or, you know, timber, you know, a couple trees out in the middle of an ag field that there's no other timber around. It could be one oak tree. It seems like deer walk by those things a lot. They just like structure for some reason. But Brian, you know, I really want to pick your brain about it too. What is your ideal setup when it comes to a kill plot for archery?
Yeah, Jared mentioned some excellent ones. Definitely the hourglass shape is one of the most popular, and for good reason. It works. Another thing that's amazing is the stuff that Nick Percy's been doing from Killer Food Plots. He's been coming up with some crazy designs, and with that Border Patrol that you were talking about earlier, you could really get creative with steering the deer where you want them to go, because it's a tall, almost fence-like application, but it doesn't prevent them from running through it. And you could go on I think it's Killer Food Plots YouTube channel. He's got all kind of crazy patterns that they've been testing, and he's come up with some really good ones, and it's amazing to watch how they work during the hunting season. Yeah, another thing to consider, as much as the shape that you want to do, you need to think about terrain and how the deer are using the area too before you put it in there. It's kind of like turkey hunting. It's a lot easier to hunt them where they want to be than to try to pull them somewhere that they don't normally want to be. So take that into consideration. If you got a spot where there's 3 or 4 trails coming together, that'd be a good spot to put an hourglass shaped food plot in. And or in a situation like my farm, I have no terrain. I'm in flat country. I use a lot of fence gaps and Border Patrol and other things to try to steer the deer. So if you've got a situation where you've got a fence and a gate that you leave open for hunting season, you can use a food plot, shape it to neck it down so where they're coming through that fence gap, you put a stand on the downwind side, it can be incredibly deadly.
Yeah, and you're just trying to concentrate deer to one area. And I totally get that. We had that scenario last year, Casey and I did it in Kansas, right in the middle of timber. and it was all these oak flats and all that stuff, and it was rolling hills, but we'd walk through probably 60 acres of timber, and we found the most concentrated area, and it was about as big as a computer desk. And it was this little low creek, dried up creek bed, and it's literally, I mean, every track was just about as big as a computer desk right there in that opening. And you walk up and down that dried creek bed, you would not find another track. It was just the most concentrated area. So we put a stand there, and once you know it, I mean, deer just come through there all the time. So, it's just trying to find the most concentrated, or make the most concentrated deer area that you want to make. Now, going forward a little bit, I want to revert back a little bit to some food plots in like last minute food plots. I know there's a lot of guys and gals out there that, we're in September right now, early September, and season's coming. Are we too late to plant food plots right now? And, if not, what are you doing to get in there and try to keep the pressure off the farm? I know that's kind of hard, but, what are you trying to do right now, and is it too late?
Yeah, you're definitely not too late. It's all based on, honestly, for me and you and Brian, we all have families, we all have kids, we all have work and lives and everything else. Get in what you can get in when you can do it. I mean, I was able to get in some plots last week, which is the end of August. Depending on what variety, like brassicas, I like to get those in prior to that, a week to 3 weeks prior to that, to be honest. And I tried some of that with a no-till strategy I had. I tried the second week in August, and it failed. Did not germinate. So I went back in there, and, I thought, I have a month till season. I'm going to disc up some of this stuff and get some stuff planted. I think that when you're in a crunch time like this, it's important to pick the right variety. So, beans, for instance, are not going to get up to maturity or do much for you planting them, early September. So if you start out with, we always talk cereal grains come September. So if you want to get out there now and say you have a spot you haven't even touched yet, you could spray that with glyphosate or Roundup today. You could also broadcast today. You could also pack it down today. You might not be able to disc or rototill as easily without it being dead, but some tillers will burn right through sod and whatnot without even spraying. So if I were to go out there again today, which I'll be doing this weekend, I'm going to plant a cereal grain mix, which is oats, cereal rye, or also called rye grain, winter wheat, or buckwheat, either or. And then I'll also add in some purple top turnips or some brassicas. And what that's going to do, the cereal grains are super attractive, only when they're young, though. So it's almost, you're not too late. You don't want to plant cereal grains prior to right now, because once they get too tall and too mature, they lose their attractiveness. So I would focus on cereal grains and, overseed with some purple top turnips or some brassicas right now. Brian, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, you've given them some pretty good advice there. Definitely cereal grains. I think we still have some time for a couple other things. My favorite mix is a mix of rye, oats, groundhog radish, winter peas, and red mammoth clover. And I can give you the breakdowns per acre if you want me to go into that much detail.
Well, with that mix, is that a mix that you've kind of come up with yourself, or is that something that's out there?
No, the first guy that I've heard that sort of coined that mix was a guy by the name of Paul Knox. He was a big-time wildlife habitat manager out in Iowa, and he was on a forum that Jared and I used to belong to, and he just was a wealth of knowledge. Unfortunately, he passed away, but his information can be found all over the internet. He's done some great tests and some great studies, and it's just been a proven mix that he's used forever.
So, in that's a mix that you'll plant right now here in September for your fall mix?
Yeah, I'll be planting this hopefully Thursday. if the rain holds off.
So then, if we can, let's break down each of what's in the mix, and when it's the best, and when it's gonna die off, basically, if it does. So could you start with the first ingredient, and then kind of give me the stats on that, and then so on and so forth?
Sure. Yeah, I'll break down the percentages. Now you can shift these either way. Like since we're getting later into September, and if it's going to be a couple more weeks till you get to it, you obviously want to go heavier on the cereal grains, because the radishes and the peas aren't going to get real effective for you. You might get a couple inches of young growth, which is great. Deer will come in and hammer them, but that's all you're going to get out of them if you get too late. But for the cereal rye and the oats, I like to do about 50 pounds each per acre, and then add in 20 pounds of peas, and then 5 pounds of the groundhog radish, and about 8 pounds of the mammoth red clover. Now, like I said, depending on your area, and you'll be able to fine tune it over the years to see if you like more peas, less peas, more radishes. But that gives you a basic breakdown of what is a pretty decent mix. And if you get it in within the next week or two, it's all going to do fine. And then your red clover will come back, and your rye will come back in the spring. And the great thing about that rye, it has a property in its roots that prohibits a lot of the bad weeds and the bad grasses from growing the next spring. And it makes it so much easier. That's why a lot of guys are using it in their no-till applications. They'll plant rye in the fall, come back in the spring, terminate that rye, and the only thing they have to kill is the rye, because it's kept the weeds and the grasses at bay. They broadcast in it, and then they either crimp it, roll over it, or mow it, and they got a beautiful spring and summer food plot.
That's interesting about the rye. I didn't know that.
Yep.
Now, can you put rye with just about anything, and it'll work?
Yeah, it doesn't seem to affect the beneficial plants like the mix that I'm talking about. But you'll notice in the spring when you come back and the rye's 3 or 4 foot tall, there'll be nothing in there except for the clover. It's amazing.
That's awesome. Now, to shift gears just a little bit, Jared, I want to go back before I forget, because I can tell it's slipping my mind here. But you had brought up turnips. Now, turnips is something I have never really had very good luck with, and I don't know why. I haven't done it a lot, but is that something right now that I could go into that kill plot, put in, and it still be successful for me for late season, or just in the fall? And if so, what do I have to do to try to get the best stand out of it? And I'm talking about in that chicory plot.
Okay, so yeah, you could definitely plant that now or very soon. They're very short season brassica. They grow fast. You're going to have the turnip below the surface of the soil, and also the tops or the tubers or whatever people like to call them on top. Don't plant too much. Don't overseed. Top dress, what I mean by top dressing, what I mentioned earlier, is going over your food plot like you're going to do in your chicory plot, and top seeding with more seed. Overseeding is too much seed, per acre or per the size of your food plot. You do not want to overseed with turnips, because what they'll do is they'll outcompete each other. Your bulbs, which are the late season part of the plant, will not get as big. So if you go in there and lightly top dress with turnips, you're going to have plenty of time for those to get established. Like I said, I do like planting them a little earlier in mid-August, but I'm planting some this weekend. There's no doubt about that. And then that'll be early September. So I would definitely try that, and I would definitely add that to your chicory. That'll fill in the bare spots. Great.
So what you mean by, don't overseed, which I understand what that is, but that could be a fine line for just anybody. Now, what's the best way to gauge if you're overseeding or not?
Yeah, so it all depends on what blend. Sometimes I'll buy some just straight purple top turnips for this exact reason. Sometimes I'll use a brassica mix, like Killer Food Plots has. I just always favor the light side, especially during this top dress period. So if you have, a half acre of chicory per se, and it's kind of spotty, I mean, it wouldn't hurt to still add a full half acre's worth of purple top turnips based on what it is. Yeah, you're gonna, you're not gonna have all of them come up and take over your chicory because your chicory is already established, but they are pretty rapid, and they will fight their way to the surface and give you a good variety and fill in those spots. So I would just do your research, because there's so many different types of seeds and radishes and turnips that you want to make sure you have the right amount. And then I would just, if you're top dressing, I would stay a little bit on the light side because you already have a food plot established. Now, if you're going no-till, if you're going into a no-till situation where, like Brian mentioned, you have that rye that you terminated, that you either crimped or sprayed or mowed, and you're not tilling the soil, that's a whole nother way to do a food plot. But in that case, which I'm speaking like this because this happened to me last year, I planted brassicas. It came in spotty, like you're saying your chicory did, and then I went over pretty heavy with the seed rate on that, because when you don't have that seed to soil contact anymore, and you're broadcasting into a dead thatch, you do need to account for what's not going to make it down to where the seeds need to be. And I do, maybe add another 25 to 50%. I probably don't need to go 50, probably another 25% just to be safe on adding that extra seed when you're doing a no-till plot.
I gotcha. Now, in my scenario right now, my farm is, pretty small. I mean, it's a lot of acres, but not very much timber. And I'm right on the edge of kind of on some bedding in some timber, and it's not very big. So would you recommend just going in there on foot, obviously? And what I do right now is, because I'm anal about it, but play the wind right, and go in there and just low profile, walk in and broadcast it and get out? Or is that something I'm going to have to kind of work in? Will it still take off if there's a good rain, if you just leave it on top of the soil? Yeah,
I would do exactly what you just said. I would sneak in when you have the wind in your favor, and a rain, on the horizon, hopefully. I'd go in there. I would broadcast right into your existing food plot right now. That's exactly what I'm going to do to mine. No matter how good or bad they look, I'm still going to do it. And I would just broadcast it and get the heck out. I mean, you're not going to want to go in there and maybe, Brian, could you cultipack over existing chicory? I know you can run over clover and it will not die. I've tried to kill it. It will not die. Can you go in there and broadcast and then cultipack over that chicory you have, Brian?
Yeah, I think you could, but it's
pretty tough.
Yeah,
so you don't need to.
It's unnecessary at this point.
Yeah, and I would probably just, spend the money of just buying the seed and just going in there, try to get in there undetected and just do it really quick and get out. And, whatever happens at this point. If anything takes or, anything germinates and comes up, then I'm going to guess, I'm going to take that as a win, and hopefully something will take over. And the thing is I always like to throw myself into the fire, and whatever happens coming out, that's my experiences I take from that. And it's like, well, maybe next year I'm like, that didn't work too well. I better not do that again, and figure out a new game plan. Maybe get off my butt, or, like you said, there's so much time taken up in the summer. You want to be out doing other things and with a family and a kid and everything. And it's like, you just feel like you don't have the time to do it. So we'll see, though. It's all about trial and error for me.
Well, I think you're on the right path. The frost heating obviously worked great for you. I would recommend doing that again on any plots you're going to keep. But what you could do with that chicory, a lot of guys will come in with a nitrogen. Brian and I talked to Lincoln on our last podcast. He likes to use a slow release nitrogen, so it doesn't burn up your food plots when they're already growing and established. You don't want to put too much fertilizer on a plot; it could burn it up and kill it. Right. So,
right.
A couple ways to get around that. And what I would do to this plot of yours, I would add a light fertilizer. There's a slow release nitrogen, which I just learned about last time. Like I said on our podcast, we talked to Lincoln about that. That's a good one. But what I've also done in the past, I've even taken a 12-12-12 and just gone super light with my broadcast spreader and just, threw it over the plot. And it wasn't very much, but it gave the plants an extra boost. It didn't kill them, didn't burn them up. And that was without a rain coming. And I was very light. If you have a rain coming, I mean, you can add more nitrogen than that. Brian, how much nitrogen do you add before a rain if your plot's already established like Aaron's?
It depends on the size, of course. Probably 50 pounds to a half acre, something along those lines.
Yeah. So, I was in the same boat. It's not a ton, but it's enough to give that chicory that extra boost. And then your other seeds that you're top dressing will benefit from that as that works into the soil and they start to grow. So I would
Awesome.
definitely do that along with your top dressing of turnips or radishes. And also I would hit cereal grains. I mean, as many times as you want to go in there. Jeff Sturges talks about how he'll plant some now. He'll broadcast again mid-September. He'll broadcast again one more time early October. And what that gives you is 3 stages of young growth. You have a month-old, rye come October 1st. You have 2-week-old rye, and you also have rye that's just sprouting. And deer like
Yep.
young, tender plants. So that's just it all depends on how much you want to go in there. But if you're going to go in there, I would do it that way. If it were me.
Gotcha. Yeah, and that's something I'm definitely gonna take into consideration because I don't want this thing to go by the wayside. I spent a lot of time, going in there and mowing it and killing it and then working it up and trying to get it to the best that I can make it because like I've talked to you guys about on the 1 acre farm, it's all ag, like I said. So I'm trying to find little unique ways to be able to put food in the farm. And that kind of segues into my next question to you is, I've got 2 waterways that divide up the ag field basically. And I mean, it's flat. It's just like where you're at, Brian. It's flat. There's no topography really, but they are gradual little rolling hills in this field. Well, in the South Waterway this year, I built a platform. It's about 8 feet off the ground, and I've got a box blind on it, and I can shoot a gun or a bow out of it. Well, the years that it's going to be corn on each side of the waterway, which is probably going to be next year, and I mean any year, honestly. I'm just trying to find unique ways to put some food here. So I asked my brother-in-law if I could, next year work up that waterway as long as I don't, hurt anything with the erosion, because those waterways play a big role in the bigger picture, which is his ag fields and the crops that he makes money on. So I don't want to ruin anything with the erosion, but I would like to go in and plant a couple strips of food in the waterway. Now, have you guys done anything with waterways and ag fields and, I'm just trying to find a way to go in there and benefit and not ruin anything that he's doing, so have you guys experienced anything with that?
Yeah, if you could go into a little more detail about the waterways. Are they like ditches or how are they shaped?
So it's just, obviously runoff from both sides of on each side of the waterway, they're gradual hills that go up. When you're down in the waterway, you can't see over the hills. So it is like a low area. The deer love to travel it. In a lot of areas of the waterway, the CRP or the goldenrod, whatever it is that grows in it, are taller than me. I'm 5'10".
Sure.
And it's as tall, if not taller than me, which is great for bedding because the deer like to bed in it too. But it's a long waterway. I could get some strips in there, and honestly, the CRP stays pretty high, so I could come in off the field a little bit, let's say 2 foot or something, and not take the grasses off there, and the deer could still feel safe in there because you can't really see it from the road. So that's almost acting as like a border patrol in a way. And I've got a bulletproof inn. The only thing is I can't hunt it on a west wind. It's got to be any wind but a west wind, which is fine. But I got a bulletproof inn, and I want to plant, some food in there. But like down in the lower areas, it's like green grass, if you can visualize it. And then you got this tall goldenrod, and it's not very deep. Like it doesn't go down to like a ditch almost. It's just kind of like it's like a bowl. It's like a bottom of a bowl. You know what I mean? It's kind of, there's no bumps or nothing in it. It's just a nice gradual, if you cut a pipe in half, the long way, it kind of looks like that. So if that makes sense.
Yeah, and if there's goldenrod growing down there, you can definitely plant it with just about anything, because goldenrod, it needs drier soil. We're not talking like cattails where it's always damp. So you could definitely get away with planting any of the above that we were just talking about, for sure.
Now, what would you do in a perfect scenario? Would you go in there and, with trying to take erosion into consideration, because I don't want to ruin anything he's doing, but in a perfect scenario, what would you do? What would you plant? How would you go about getting it prepped?
Well, that's where a good mix would come into play, because you'd always have something there, even with the mix that I mentioned, like the groundhog radish and the peas, and the oats too. They'll die over the winter, but then the clover and the rye will still be there holding the dirt. So you definitely want to plan to have something always growing there, so you're not having bare dirt if you're worried about erosion.
Right. So try to get something that's going to be there year round, and or like you could do a Jeff Sturges method where you go in there and you broadcast 2 or 3 times out of the year. Would that still work?
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, and that's something I might pick your guys' brain a little bit more when it comes to next year planting season, and when I wanna do that and just kind of revisit it maybe, and maybe that's something we document as well, and just kind of the progression, because I feel like there's probably a lot of guys out there that are trying to find unique ways. I mean, I'm not the only one out there with a farm that's all ag and just fence rows, So I'm just trying to think outside the box a little bit, and think of some new ways to be able to, food is really big. Food, water, cover. I mean, everybody says it, and cover something that I've been working on, but it's in small portions. So
Sure.
Food is the next thing that I got to do, but it's in small portions. So when really saving crops isn't an option, and paying for crops, it's really not an option. And so I got to think uniquely and outside the box, and try to figure something out here. So we'll see.
Well, another good thing you could do, especially anybody else in your situation with a smaller area to work, you can plan all the access roads. Like Clover will handle equipment traffic all day long. Now, normally I wouldn't recommend that on bigger farms, because you're not going to be able to concentrate the deer. But in a situation like yours, where you're limited on places where you could put food, Clover would be fantastic on all the access roads.
I got you. That's a good plan. And one thing I also thought about too is the fence rows. So they're wooded fence rows, and obviously there's like CRP grass that grows up in them. So, I think it would be a lot of work, but I think it might be beneficial. In one of the stands that I have, I was thinking about going in there and trying to clear out any debris, any thatch, any, CRP, maybe with a weed whip. It would be a heck of a lot of work. But clearing out a little area, it could be a 30-yard strip, I don't know. Clearing it out and going in and spraying it, and then just letting that, that thatch go down. You wouldn't be able to probably work it up. It'd be hard to work up, but like broadcasting something, and just whatever happens, that's a little food too that's going to be there, all year, hopefully, or in the fall at least, for, when you're there hunting. I don't know if that's something you guys you've thought of, or even have come across too, because I know there's some deep woods blends out there that work really well in shaded areas. So that was also a thought I had as well. So I'm just trying to, express all my options and figure something out. So.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Matter of fact, I would try that. I would take your Roundup or your glyphosate, same thing, and spray that area. You might not even have to cut it down, depending on what's there. And that's going to create a thatch and mulch layer for whatever seed you spread there. And I would pick something that can grow easy, like a clover or a rye or a oat. I don't see how that couldn't work. And especially if the rest of the fence row, north and south of you is just all the same. And then you have this 30 yards maybe just in front of you of this kind of cross between some cover and maybe some turnips that are coming up or maybe some oats. I mean, I guarantee you're going to see deer focus on that area. And they might even start crossing right there versus where they can cross anywhere else. Yep. It's just like enhancing your area, your hunting spot as best you can. Dig a little spot and put a 20-gallon tote down there for a water hole. I mean, I know you have some waterways, but I don't know if they're active or full, or if you're high and dry in a field somewhere on a fence row, you put a little tote there in the ground. I mean, I had a 140-inch Michigan buck drinking out of mine last year. It was insane.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's something I've done on my family farm as well, in an area where there wasn't any water at all. I put a 20-gallon down, and honestly, I went back this year to try to dig it up because I don't hunt the area anymore. The area's changed quite a bit. The deer use it differently. I can't get the darn thing out of the water or the hole, so I guess it's going to stay there. But that was another thing I was going to do too, and I do use a Banks water trough system on this farm. Yeah, and but I put it in an area because I used it on the family farm for 2 or 3 years, and the deer, I tried hunting over it, and the deer would only use it after dark. Like, they just could never get used to it, but they would use it. I put this one in the ground. I dug it and put it in the ground. I watched a lot of Jeff Sturges stuff on that. He's big on water sources, and they seem to like that better. So I was thinking about doing the same thing, and like you said, and the best thing about that is you don't have to fill the darn thing. You fill it once and usually just let the rainwater take over. In my experience, I haven't had to fill that other one in like 3 years. I filled it once, and like the rainwater and the runoff takes over, which is good. But that Banks water trough, either the evaporation and the deer, like the mix of the two, or the deer just hammer the heck out of it. I don't have a camera on it, but I was telling you guys how in the middle of these 3 ag fields, there's one of the ag fields is landlocked. So there's a right-of-way that goes back to that for the farmers to get back there and everything. Well, it's in the middle of a section. No timber around it, no nothing. You're not screwing up any deer or anything around there. So I put it there because I have to fill it quite often in the summer. So that's why I did that. It was a ways away from everything, but it's a water source, and I've kind of positioned things to where I can hunt field edges and little travel routes that a deer might be taking to go there, to get a drink. It's a ways away from me, but it's the thought I had, and I'm just trying to express every option that I have.
Yep, I think that's all it is, really. A food plot, a water hole, a mock scrape. I mean, anything you can tilt the scales towards you in your favor, do it.
Well, I guess lastly, I want to round this podcast out. I'm taking up a lot of your guys' time here, and it's kind of getting late, but I got a couple questions for you, and it's something I've been doing the last couple of weeks, and just feeling everybody out about it. And I got a couple questions. And first, Jared, I'll start with you, and then Brian, you can take over when he's done. But if you only had 7 days to hunt in the fall for whitetails, only 7, all fall, when are you taking them and why?
I would be flexible, and I would take them on cold fronts. So what I would do is, say, mid-October, we have a 10 or 12 degree temperature drop, and there's a storm moving in. The wind's picking up that night, maybe some light precipitation. I would pick one evening, bam, right there. I would do that the next time it came through, probably mid to late October. Last year we had one on the 3rd of October. So that would be probably 2 or 3 days right there. And then I'd burn up the rest of them pre-rut early November. It'd be the coldest, nastiest days I could find. I'm a sucker for bad weather. I see the biggest deer in bad weather, and I that's when I'm in the woods.
Gotcha. Brian, how about you?
Were you talking about consecutive days if you only had like a week's vacation?
Yeah, if you only have a week's vacation,
screwed
but
that
you
up
can
then.
break. No, you're good. You're good. I like the unique answers. If you had a week's vacation, but you didn't have to take it all at one time if you didn't want to, you could break it up, and you could use like Friday as a vacation day and hunt Saturday, Sunday if you want. You know what I mean? So you're actually expanding your days. But if you only had a week's vacation, what are you doing?
Well, anywhere from October 25th through the middle of November. I mean, that's the money days, and I'm learning the more time I spend in the woods that last week of October is really exceptional if you know where the bucks are at, because they're getting antsy and they're leaving their core areas leaving their bedding areas a little bit earlier. And I just noticed the last few years I've been paying attention to it, that 25th, 26th, 27th of October through the end of October is pretty special.
I gotcha. That's another great answer, because what I'm doing is I'm just trying to get everybody's perspective that I have on, and I might pull these up at the end whenever I decide it's over, and just kind of see what guys say and see if there's any trends going on. So it's just something different, and a lot of people like hearing it, and a lot of listeners like hearing it, and might give them some ideas when to take their vacation also. But
all right.
So one more I got for you, and this is I think I know what your answer is not going to be, but I'm going to test you anyway. So I'll start with you, Brian, on this one. If you only had one whitetail state to whitetail hunt for the rest of your life, what state would it be and why?
Well, I'd have to go with Ohio because that's the one I'm most familiar with. I'd like to say Iowa is probably the best answer, but I've never hunted there, so I'd have to stick with Ohio.
Well, and that's the default answer too, so we can't accept that. Iowa's the I can't accept that.
There
answer.
You go.
So Ohio. Okay. So Jared, how about you?
Well, if you can't pick Iowa, and which I've never hunted Iowa either, I'll be going there this fall. Luckily, I finally drew, so I'll be able to comment on that later. But I've hunted Ohio. I love Ohio. You really never know what's going to pop over the ridge in Ohio. It could be anything. It's insane down there. What I like more though, I like the ditches and draws of the Midwest. Like I'd probably go Nebraska. Because you can get out west, you can hunt some mule deer, but there are a bunch of good bucks in Nebraska. And over the counter tag, you can buy. Actually, I think you can buy more than one after you kill your first buck. And the scenery is just, the crop fields and the drainages. It's just like Iowa or these other states. I would pick Illinois, but the tag's like $600 there, so I'd probably go Nebraska.
Perfect. Awesome. I haven't had anybody say Nebraska yet, or Ohio, and so that's good. Those are cool questions that we actually had. We did a live podcast with Chris and Casey, and those were a couple of questions that people wanted to know. So I thought those were unique. So I just want to get everybody's perspective. So
perfect.
Well, good deal, boys. I appreciate you coming on here and doing this, and I thank you very much. I'm gonna cut you guys loose here and let you guys have the rest of your evening. So if you guys could, Jared or Brian, whoever, Jared, I guess I'll say to you, make it easy, but let everybody know where they can, listen to your podcast and where they can consume all the content.
Yeah, thanks, Aaron. Appreciate that. We are over at habitatpodcast.com. You can also go on any of the places you can get your podcast, whether it's iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify. We're on all those. And we'd love to see you guys on Facebook and Instagram. We're heavy on there. And kind of to your question about, what 7 days would you pick? We kind of do this cool series on our podcast called Game Plan episodes. Aaron, if you kill a buck on like let's say October 12th, I will probably be calling you, asking you to interview like that night or the next night, and just, putting you to the questions, all of them, and trying to find out what all the listeners out there can do that next weekend when they're off of work to go out there and maybe try to replicate what you did, your success. So that's something that we like to do during season only, and try to give the listeners something to grasp. So maybe you killed your buck, that week. Well, I listen to your podcast the next day, and maybe I can put that same sort of plan together that weekend. It's just something we like to do. So I figured I'd mention that.
Awesome. That's a cool little series. I can't wait to hear, because relevance is always good. And you want to hear things. I mean, it's hard to hear things as it happens. It's not possible. So it's cool to hear that story even if it's within a day or two. So I can't wait to hear that. So very cool. Well, I'm going to let you guys go. Like I said, thank you very much for both of you coming on, and obviously good luck this year, and we'll be talking to you soon again.
Thanks, Aaron.
Thanks a lot, Aaron. Good luck this year, too.
And there you have it, another good podcast, number 81. Thank you, everybody, for listening and subscribing and supporting everything. I can't thank everybody enough. This thing's really blown up, and I really enjoy doing this, and hopefully a lot of people are getting some things out of it. I don't claim to be an expert by any means on any of this stuff. It's just I'm a regular guy and like to talk deer hunting, and I'm going to take every excuse I can get to talk deer hunting in any shape, way, or form. And hopefully everybody out there enjoys my monotone voice and my BS sessions and the guests that I have come on here. So thank you for doing that. Please go to iTunes and leave a 5-star rating. I'd really appreciate that. And don't forget, next week we're going to have a new episode right here on the Fall Podcast.